Wow, these polls are just happening as we speak. It's astonishing stuff, and there's really only one place to start, because an incredible opinion poll that came out in the last few minutes is predicting that Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, will lose his seat at the general election. It says that Labour is on course to win a remarkable 382 seats majority in 16 days' time. Let's take a look at the big MRP poll that was done by Savanta for The Telegraph. It has, as you can see, as Labour winning 516 seats. It puts the Conservatives on a meagre 53 seats. As I just said, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak will be turfed out. He will lose his seat. Now, the poll predicts a major comeback for the Liberal Democrats, who it says will pick up 50 seats. And by contrast, the Scottish National Party is forecast to have a very, very bad night indeed, winning just 8 seats. Just 8 seats for the SNP north of the border. Let's get some instant reaction now with our political editor, Chris Hope. Chris, this is Armageddon for the Conservatives. We've seen 3 polls out today. This is the second of them. It's an absolutely astonishing set of results.
Yeah, it's worth just repeating these numbers again, because the viewers are hearing them for the first time, and they are just extraordinary. In 2019, Labour won 202 seats. They're up to 516. In 2019, the Tories won 365 seats. They're down to 53. Lib Dems, 11 up to 50. SNP, 48 down to 8. It's a complete filleting, a debowling of the political class in Scotland and also more widely in the UK. The Tories are destroyed by this. We are seeing, according to this, it breaks down seat by seat. It's an 18,000 strong poll by Savanta and the Daily Telegraph between 7th of June to the 18th of June, using something called a multi-level regression and post-stratification poll, which means they can estimate who wins for which polls. Yep. The seat here, 53 seats for Tories, is a third fewer than the disaster in 1997. No sitting PM has ever lost their seat. Arthur Balfour nearly lost his seat, but back in 1906, but he resigned as Prime Minister and lost it when he was leader of the opposition. Caveats here, because Reform UK has only recently been set out separately as Reform UK rather than others. So Reform UK could be being underestimated in this poll, but we are seeing 3/4 of the Tory cabinet wiped out. But they do say here that a small improvement in the Tory vote share could improve that seats, but that is extraordinary. I've got to remind viewers, by the way, of the first MRP poll that we did for GBNews. In fact, we were the first across the board, and many discounted it then. That was in the 31st of May. We said then that the Tories would be left with maybe as few as 66 seats or 72 seats without tactical voting. This is 53 seats. The Tories are going backwards in a general election that they called voluntarily themselves.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out, just to put this in context, that majority of 382, we were talking about, will it be a Blair-style landslide? This is more than double Tony Blair's majority of 179 in 1997.
It's more than the actual number of Tory MPs at the moment. The majority of Labour is bigger than the entire number of Tory MPs just finished in Parliament before Parliament was dissolved. This is extraordinary. Again, lots of polls out there, and they are on the detail. The trend is for a massive majority for Labour across all of the MRP polls, and the Tories having a complete nightmare on July the 4th. But the detail is different, and we are seeing it in other polls dropping elsewhere. A UCUB poll just dropped, giving Reform 5 MPs, for example, rather than 0. We heard earlier from a pollster offering 1 to 5 odds that Nigel Farage will win his seat. So I think around on the detail, this could fluctuate quite a lot.
And we're going to be speaking to someone from YouGov around about 5:30, I believe, to go over that. That's quite a different set of results, but an astonishing turnaround. 311 lost seats by the Conservatives, 314 gained by the Labour Party, the Liberal Democrats gaining 39, the SNP losing 40. This is a huge huge reset.
It is, but were Rishi Sunak sitting where I am, he'd be telling you the only poll that matters is July the 4th, of course he would, and polls are wrong in the past. The problem they've got is there's a trend that goes back to the first GBNews electoral calculus poll on May the 31st until now, and there have been, I reckon, 6 or 7 or 8 polls of this scale since then. They are all forecasting at least a triple-digit Labour majority, landslide majority. And the landslide, by the way, in old money is over 100. This is triple landslide, a super majority for the Labour Party if it comes to pass.
And yet, Chris Hope, 3 polls in one day giving very, very different results. Does that say to us...
Well, the trend's there. I mean,
but does that say to us, though, Chris, that we have such volatility in the electorate? We have so many people who are undecided. We have such apathy. Yeah. Even these could be wrong.
I would challenge that and say not very different. The trend is there for Keir Starmer being in 10 Downing Street with a massive majority. Those are the trend of across all 3 polls. What is different, I think, is the scale of Labour's victory. And what is different there, I think, is that I think the undecideds are key. Now, I've been told that just in the yellow-blue wall in the southwest of England, maybe 25% of people haven't decided how they're going to vote yet. And I think that is what we're seeing here. Because of the undecideds, people just cheesed off with politics. They don't want to commit to anything, none of the above. And that, of course, is helping Reform UK in the polls. I think that is what is driving the variation in how big is Labour's landslide. But be in no doubt, these 3 polls give Sir Keir Starmer a huge supermajority on July the 4th.
Chris Hope, don't go anywhere, but let's get some Conservative reaction to this astonishing set of polls right now, because I'm joined by former Conservative member of the European Parliament, David Campbell-Bannerman, who joins me now. There's no glossing this, there's no sugarcoating this. This is Starmageddon. This is a total wipeout for the Conservatives. It's just the margin of destruction. David Campbell-Bannerman, this must bring you no comfort whatsoever. A dark day for the Conservatives if these numbers come to pass.
Well, that's right, Martin, I'm afraid. I mean, it's astonishing, these figures. And I think, this is a poll. Let's remember that. It's not the final result. And it may well shock Conservatives who are thinking of not voting or swinging to Reform to think, do we want to hand Labour this massive supermajority, and things can change in the last week. But I think Chris is right. Obviously the prevailing trend of all these polls is towards a big Labour majority, and that frightens me. Super wokeism, return to the EU. They want to get close to the EU again. They're not to be trusted on the EU or Brexit. So I am worried. I would say the one thing I can take out of it was the Conservatives did this badly in 1906 when a certain Sir Henry Campbell-Bannerman won for the Liberal Party then. So there is some historical analogy here, but it's the wrong way around, of course, and I'm very concerned about it. Yeah.
David, it's Chris here in the studio.
Yeah.
You were a big fan of Boris Johnson. You've been an ally of his going back since he was defenestrated by his own MPs back in 2022. What does this say to you? Was it a huge mistake to get rid of Boris Johnson? And should he come back, frankly, to save his party?
Well, yes, Chris, it's utter disaster. In his resignation speech, Boris said we're a couple of points behind. It was actually 2 to 4% then. Then it went down to about 24% under Rishi. And there's no excuse from Rishi, to be honest. He said everything would be better, and it isn't better. But we're stuck with it now. We've got to get the best Conservatives in. We've got to back those and make the best of it. But, this is extraordinary. It's historical. And my worry is it could be over 10 years of Labour, and the damage they can do to our country in that time is very, very concerning.
David, do you think it's fair and proper at this stage to be saying, if you vote for the Reform Party, you'll get the Labour Party? Surely this is on the Conservatives. And who is the captain of the Titanic, be it Rishi Sunak, be it Boris Johnson? You've been in power for 14 years. Migration has gone through the roof. Net zero targets have punished voters. Wokeism, that's happened on the Conservative Party's watch. It's not enough to blame Reform. It's not enough to blame an incoming government. This is on the Conservatives.
Well, obviously, the Conservatives have been in power for 14 years. Well, let's not forget 5 years as a coalition, and we've had COVID in between. But no, this isn't an excuse. There hasn't been enough delivery, and getting rid of Boris, an election winner who delivered us the biggest win since 1987, was an act of pure folly. And there must be a lot of MPs that thought it was a good idea sitting there now, wondering whether they have a future as an MP as a result. But we're stuck with it now, and we've got to make the best of it, and we've got to think ahead for the future of the country. And I'm afraid, a supermajority for Labour is very, very dangerous. That, it will encourage them to go much, much further than they would actually have put in their manifesto as now. So I am deeply concerned of where this is all going. But, there can be some late change and a greater swing back just to stop a supermajority.
OK, well, David Campbell-Bannerman, thank you so much for joining us and facing the music on this dark day. An optimistic note to end on from you there, but I wouldn't blame you if you drew the curtains and poured yourself a glass of something strong. David Campbell-Bannerman, thank you very much for joining us on the show. Always a delight to have your company. And as we mentioned there, Rishi Sunak is standing in Richmond and North Ollerton. And here's a list of the candidates who are also standing in that constituency. It's Jason Barnett, independent. Count Binface of the Count Binface Party, Daniel George Callaghan of the Liberal Democrats, Angie Campion, independent, Louise Ann Dickens of the Workers' Party of Britain, Kevin Foster of the Green Party, Rio Goldhammer, Yorkshire Party, Nico Omilana, independent, Brian Neal, Richmond, independent, Sir Archibald Stanton, the official monster raving loony party, and Rishi Sunak of the Conservative Party, Lee Martin Taylor, Reform UK, and Tom Wilson of the Labour Party. That's a lot of candidates. Now to an absolutely shocking and staggering story that certainly got you going out of there. Just Stop Oil activists have sprayed orange paint on the ancient sacred monument of Stonehenge, and the incident happened this morning. 2 people have been arrested on suspicion of damaging Stonehenge, and Rishi Sunak has condemned the Just Stop Oil attack as a disgraceful act of vandalism. Well, our Southwest of England reporter Jeff Moody is at Stonehenge. Jeff, well done for hot-footing it down there. It's fair to say this has absolutely staggered the nation. It's astonished our viewers. They are fuming. Tell us the latest. What on earth were they thinking?
Well, people certainly are fuming. Unfortunately, this is the closest I can get to Stonehenge at the moment. You can just about see it over my shoulder there. I'm on the edge of the A303, and there's always a lot of traffic around here, but particularly at this point, because this is where people slow down so that they can get a really good view of the stones. Well, it was around lunchtime, 12 o'clock today, that protesters sprayed this orange powder paint over Stonehenge. People did try and stop them. They tried to stop them spraying most of the paint, but unfortunately they didn't succeed, and 2 people were arrested. Wiltshire Police have said that Neve Lynch is a 21-year-old student from Oxford, and Rajan Naidu is 73 and from Birmingham. Well, as you said, the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak earlier on today described this as a disgraceful act of vandalism, and the Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer said the damage is outrageous and described Just Stop Oil as pathetic. Well, you asked why they have done this, and that's a very difficult question to answer, because they have always said that what they're calling for is no new oil and gas licences. Well, the Labour government has said that they don't intend, if they get into Parliament, they don't intend to issue any more licences. So it then begs the question, why would they continue today? And they're now saying that they've moved the goalposts a little. They're now saying that it's not enough for there not to be any new licences. They actually want us to phase out the use of gas and coal completely by the year 2030. So they've changed their mission slightly, and hence they're going to carry on these campaigns. Well, at the moment, we're not quite sure how much damage has been done. Of course, tomorrow is the summer solstice. thousands of people descend on Stonehenge tomorrow evening from around 7 o'clock to watch the sun set on the longest day of the year, and then to camp out overnight right by the stones in order to see the sunset on Friday morning. English Heritage are now looking to see how much damage has been done. Well, Just Stop Oil has said, look, there isn't much damage. It's only powder paint, a little bit of rain and it'll wash away. But English Heritage are not quite so sure that that's the case. They're getting experts who are looking at the site at the moment to see if there is any permanent damage. But this will, of course, raise lots of questions as to how close we can get to the stones. If you go to English Heritage and you pay to get in, it's £33, by the way, to get in, you can get quite close to the stones, although they do make you stick to a path. But as we've seen today, it's very easy to hop over that fence and get very close to the stones. So this will certainly raise many, many questions now as to whether we can continue to go so close to the stones.
Thank you, Jeff Moody, live there at Stonehenge. Worth pointing out that Sir Keir Starmer has said Just Stop Oil are pathetic, and Rishi Sunak has said Just Stop Oil are a disgrace. And in fact, the official Twitter account of Stonehenge itself has said, expect a prison sentence, probably in their finest Brian Blessed-style voice. The Stones themselves there seem to be condemning the actions of Just Stop Oil. An outrageous story. We'll have more on that throughout the rest of the show.